Hey y'all, this is, Hey y'all, I'm Nicole, and I'm what you would call an Alta baker. Not necessarily Alta like Alta Beauty, but Alta in terms of alternative. And I like taking recipes that already exist, that have healthy qualities, and trying to make them a little bit healthier in terms of sugar or flour or anything of the sort. So what I did is I got a recipe from Oh Sweet Basil for a zucchini bread. And the ingredients in the bread are 4 cups of zucchini, 3 large eggs, half a cup of sour cream, a cup of canola oil, 2 cups of sugar, 3 1/4 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, half a teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and if I want to add cinnamon sugar, about 2 tablespoons. Now, we're going to be doing this together because I've never done this recipe before and I have never done any of these alternative ingredients before. I've used them in other recipes, but I've never done this specific recipe with these ingredients before. So I hope you enjoy trying this out with me. So looking at the recipe, it says to preheat the oven, which I've already done to 350, and to spray your pans, which I've already done. I have them set up. So next it says to add whisk together flour, baking soda, baking powder, salt, and spices and set aside. So instead of using the 3 1/4 cups of flour, I did a cup and a half of almond flour. You can make almond flour yourself if you'd like. I am a little bit too lazy to do that. So you can roast some almonds in your oven, and then you can leave them overnight to dry out, and you can put them into a coffee grinder. Food processor is probably better. If you want it really fine, then you can do food processor to blender. Completely up to you. Then I did twofold. I did gluten-free flour, which we'll see how my body handles that. I did about a cup of that one, and I did about 3/4 cup of ground up oats. I mean, you can get oat flour, but oat flour is basically shredded up oats, so I just put them through the blender. Well, actually, I put them through my coffee grinder / spice grinder. It just made more sense for me. Now, you can do any type of one you want to do. Just be careful of certain flours. Almond flour allows you a 1-to-1 ratio of regular flour. If you get the right type of gluten-free, that also gives you 1-to-1 ratio, so you want to be careful. Coconut flour, you have to add more liquids, especially eggs. Then it says, let's see here, baking soda, baking powder, spices, and set aside. So I am not switching these out. I am just using regular baking soda and baking powder here. Because it is my leavening agent, which I'll explain later, but I will explain a little bit now, I guess. The leavening agents are normally eggs, baking flour, baking soda. Sometimes it'll ask you to put carbonated, anything carbonated in it. So if you're making, let's say, soda bread, you can use carbonated beverage to help leaven that up. But for this one, this is mostly our leavening agent, and I don't want to mess too much up. I don't want to mess with this one too much. So let me see. It is 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So we will do 1, 2. There we go. And then, let me see, where is that baking powder I put somewhere? Oh, here it is. Baking soda has, I believe, a little more of basic components as compared to your baking powder. One requires a acidic agent in order to activate, one does not. I do not remember which one it is. I'm going to be completely honest. Baking powder has the acidic agent. But you do have to be careful. This one requires half teaspoon of baking powder. Now, if you're like me and you don't like the taste of baking soda, you can play around and triple the amount of baking powder you put in as compared to the baking soda. Again, you have to look at your recipes, make sure that you do or don't require acidic agents, but that is about the ratio of change in terms of your baking soda compared to your baking powder. And also the seasonings, as I like to call them, or spices. This requires 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now, I love my spices. Normally, I would try clove in here. I would add maybe a little bit of fresh ginger, but I don't really want to take that chance and change the recipe from what it is too much, at least right now. If you do want to add extra cinnamon normally, or any extra spice, normally you're all right. Because when you buy your spices at the store, you don't know how long they've been sitting there. So a lot of them have lost their fragrance and have lost their flavor. So if you add a little extra, you're actually okay. So this one is calling for 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. So we're just gonna kind of do a free for all. I mean, yeah, why not? Don't try this at home. Or do try this at home. Completely up to you. You make your own decisions. Okay. Now we're gonna really get to the special change in terms of the recipes. So the flours we know are a little different. So I'm just going to whisk them together. Because of the almond flour, it does require a little bit extra whisking as compared to other flours because it does clump up a little bit more. Okay, so we put that aside, and now it is time for us to do our wet ingredients. This is where things really change for me, or what I decided to change in the recipe. So this recipe calls for, let's see, the oil and the sugar. Now, instead of doing canola oil, which it suggested, a cup, I'm doing a cup of melted coconut oil. This is because, only personal preference really. I mean, canola oil will work just as well, but coconut oil does have a lot of great properties in it. You have vitamins A and E. Where is my whisk? Okay. And
I realize that is a
can be really
spatula,
great for
not
you.
a whisk.
And, you know, I think it has a little bit of a sweeter flavor to it. Okay, so we're going to make sure we can get as much of this out as we possibly can. Because I'm pretty sure I measured almost to a T, a cup, and then I spilled a little bit on the floor. So I had to add a little bit more and kind of measure as is. However, with this recipe, because it's a zucchini bread, there's a lot of moisture. And the coconut oil is kind of adding a little bit more to that moisture and a little bit more fat. So I think I will be okay, but I would try to measure it almost exactly to a cup, okay? Okay, so we're putting the oil, and then we're gonna do sugar and whisk. I'm not using regular sugar. My body has not had regular sugar in about 3 weeks, and I don't know how my body would handle it. So I am actually going to use honey. I was thinking of adding a little bit of molasses to add that flavor of the almost what would be in brown sugar, because brown sugar is mostly sugar, white sugar mixed with molasses. However, I've decided against that because the recipe doesn't say brown sugar, but that's just something that you can always know at some point that's what that does. Okay, let's get as much of the honey as we possibly can out because I don't want to lose any of this liquid gold. And also just remember though that honey is found more in nature, which is why I like to use it a little bit more. I like, dates as well as agave nectar is more in nature. The processed sugars, I will be honest, I don't know exactly what goes through the processing. Depending on
more processing means less nutrients, but don't use that as an excuse to use more natural sugars in your food.
Than others. Okay, I think that's about as much as I'm going to get out of there. I think that was a crackerjack job on my part. And then, let's see, it says whisk together and then add in the eggs in whisk. So let me move the spatula for now. Okay, and get the whisk. Okay, so I'm going to kind of try to whisk this as much as I can together. The thing is, because you're adding another liquid with another liquid, it does kind of change it a little bit, the consistency. I've done honey instead of sugar in recipes, and I've really liked it. But the one thing you do have to be careful of is that most recipes, most alternative sites suggest that you add less honey as compared to sugar because you don't need as much. I, however, have noticed that there has been a difference in terms of flavor. It's just not as sweet. So a lot of sites suggest 1/2 as compared to 1 cup of sugar. I don't like that. So I add about 3/4. And sometimes my little trick is what I'm going to add next. So it says to add in the eggs as and then whisk. Now I'm not using just eggs. I am going to use 1 egg. Let's see if I can not get the shells in. I'll be very happy if I can do that well. I'm still not amazing at that. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Yay, no shells. Yay! Very happy. I did it. Okay. So instead of just the egg, I'm actually going to add a banana. Now, it depends, like I said before, leavening agents change. Sometimes eggs in your recipe are the specific and primary leavening agent, which means it's allowing your product or your baked good to rise. So if you put less eggs, you're going to have a denser product. So if you're doing that, and it's your primary agent, you don't want to use a banana, because a banana is really the second reason that you would put eggs in, which is for moisture. Now, as we've discussed before, your leavening agents in this one, you have baking soda and baking powder. So you can kind of finagle this recipe a little bit more, and you can put in a banana. Now, the ratio normally is half a banana to an egg. I put a full banana to replace 2 of the eggs and then used 1 egg. Now, you can use a flax egg, which is pretty much, I think it's about, it's a ratio of flax seeds to water. I think it's about a tablespoon of ground flax seeds. You have to grind them up. And then about
Correction, it is 1 tablespoon of flax seeds to 3 tablespoons of cold water to soak for 5 minutes.
Now, I will warn you that if you do not grind up your seeds, not only will you not be able to use them as an egg, but there is a slight amount of cyanide in flax seeds that is the chemical compound, the structure, is actually broken from breaking them up in a blender, not blender, but in a coffee grinder. That's where I would use the coffee grinder, is for the flax seeds, because you're going to get a better breaking as compared to a food processor or anything else. And you're probably not going to need so much in terms of how you use it. So I would definitely recommend buying whole flax seeds and just using a coffee grinder as compared to getting, ground flax, because that doesn't last as long. I think it's only about 2 weeks until it may even go rancid. So go with the whole flax seeds and then just use your coffee grinder. If you have a coffee grinder. If you don't, I do recommend one. If you drink coffee. If you don't drink coffee but you like to grind up your own spices fresh, then definitely get a coffee grinder. So, okay, so this is pretty whiskey. Okay. Let's see. And then it also calls for a half a cup of sour cream. Now, instead of the sour cream, I am going to use, a Greek yogurt. It has microbial properties, so you know how they always tell you, oh, you should have your daily yogurt because it gives you those microbes that you need to be healthy. There's lots of truth to that. If it cultures bacteria, the specific yogurt you're having, then that's great. Your body does require microbes in order to function, because your body on its own cannot break down every single type of food you eat. So your body actually relies on the microbes in its gut in order to break down food to give you the energy and the nutrients that you need in life. That's why when you have a baby, or if anyone has a baby, that they give them vitamin K shots right before they are right after they're born, because their body can't make vitamin K, which is a necessary thing, because they don't have enough microbes in their body yet, in their gut yet, in order to be able to eat or be able to function when it comes to that. And vitamin K, I believe, is for clotting, so that's actually a pretty important vitamin to have. So on that as a side note, I am adding the Greek yogurt because it does have a little more protein, and it does still have a good amount of fat that you're getting in that sour cream, but you're not necessarily dealing with only fat. This does have most likely a little bit more sugar, although I did get a full fat, less sugar Greek yogurt. This does have most likely a little bit more sugar. I did not get one that has not vanilla or anything, so it does taste very, very tart, like I just ate. Okay, so we whisk that together. Okay, so now we're going to add 4 cups of the zucchini. I shredded this myself. I think you can buy shredded zucchini. Good for you if you do. I do not want to pay the price, and my laziness has been trumped by my cheapness or frugalness, so I have just shredded them myself. Just remember also that you have a lot of liquid in these zucchini shreds, So if you've done, let's say, like the flaxseed or you've done the honey, don't try to do, like I said, a 1-to-1 ratio, even though you do want it to be sweeter.
Blotting the zucchini would also help.
We've already added the banana to add that extra sweetness, which works well because in a zucchini bread, you think banana bread, so if you get that slight banana taste, it's not a problem. Okay, let's whisk together. Okay, so now we are going to dump in the dry ingredients, and I should use a wooden spoon, but I'm not going to, so I don't like to clean a lot. So I'm going to use a whisk. A silicone whisk I'm using.
Once again, I have decided that the spatula is a whisk.
It has a little more give. I'm just going to pile this on top. We'll do a little bit at a time. I don't want to go balls to the wall crazy on this. Okay. Now you don't want to overmix this. But yeah, I have noticed if you do overmix things sometimes, it actually becomes drier. And it does become a little bit tougher and more chewy when you eat it. But I'm assuming the component structures that you're making in order to build the cake and get ready to build the cake, you are encouraging certain structures that hold tougher bonds, and you are breaking the lighter bonds. That's just
You're encouraging gluten bonds, which make it denser, drier, and chewy, depending on the recipe.
And the last amount, because I'm not really good at waiting. I mean, I am, but not. So let's just get this done. Okay. This is why they ask you to do a wooden spoon. Now I get it! Because it's really tough and you don't want a piece of your silicone to break in the mix. I'm going to be really careful. Oops. See, we're learning together! Yay! Learning is fun. Okay. I'm almost there, I think. Let me get my spoony. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot. I should have added this beforehand, so I don't know how this is going to work. For some reason it said not to add vanilla, and I don't do that.
And I forgot the salt.
Be careful on that one, because we don't want to add too much. And by add too much, I mean I don't, vanilla extract is kind of on the rise in terms of price. This is because vanilla beans are very hard to grow. They're very fickle, and only certain areas in the world actually grow vanilla beans to the point where they are almost their own currency. A vanilla bean is so much more expensive than, I feel like, gold or silver nowadays because it's so rare. And it's to the point where vanilla bean farmers are actually branding their beans to make sure no one can steal them. That being said, it's expensive. So I don't want to use too much. I just want to use enough to bring out more of that sugar flavor that I'm not adding because I'm doing honey and a banana that's not very ripe instead. So we are going to pour these into the pans. Okay, like I said, I've already greased them. So let's pour this in without making a mess. It smells really good, actually. I say that like I'm really surprised. I shouldn't be. It's like, it's sugar and, oh, is this, yeah, it looks like it's mixed, yeah. It's like I was saying before, it's like sugar and banana and like fatness and sugariness, and how can it not be good? So that's the second one. So I'm gonna put that to the
forward.
side. And then, yeah, they're about even. Yeah. So we're going to put them in the oven. Okay. And they are going to cook for that. So what you will do is it'll bake for about 50 minutes. It's already been in there for 30 seconds, I guess. And yeah, so now we wait. Oh, shoot. More! Why more dishes? Don't snap your fingers at me. Okay, so now it has been about 50 minutes. So it is time to use this because I do not want to burn myself. Ooh, it's already looking pretty good. If you can see that. Not really, kind of. It says to put foil on top. I'm going to do that, but I decided to just cut one piece and kind of like finagle it around. We'll see if that works. As long as they don't fall. It said loose, so I figured, there, that kind of works. Just gotta slowly slide that back in. Okay. Now we wait for another 10 minutes. I have no clue what to do with myself. Turn off and let the bread rest for 2 to 3 minutes, no longer. Okay, so we'll turn off the oven. Cancel. And we leave it open a crack. Let's... no, looks about a crack. Yeah, that's about as good as it's gonna get. It's not looking very jiggly, but it's looking jiggly enough in my opinion. I think the rest of it will cook. It's looking to me though that the replacement of the banana wasn't necessarily the best option. Maybe doing 2 eggs and a half of a banana would have been better, because then I would have gotten that moisture I wanted, but then maybe would have risen a little bit. It rose a bit, but not as much as it could have if it would have had if it would have had another egg. And then with the brownness, it's looking, I will bring it over here. This is probably not a good idea because it's right over my phone. Let's use the knife. And let's see what it says before I mess with it. Okay, let's see. At this point, slide a knife around the inside of the pan and carefully turn the bread out into your other hand or onto the cooling rack directly if you are gentle. Place it right side up and allow it to cool. Or be like us and dig in! Okay, so I'm going to go with the second option because I want to try this. I've gotten myself hungry at this point. So to make sure nothing spills, I'm going to use the same piece of aluminum foil that I just cut, because I cut a big piece anyway, to put right under. So I'm going to put this on the stove for right now, starting with one bread at a time. Let's see. So let's use the knife. Now that's a knife. Okay. Looking to come off pretty well. So it looks like you wouldn't have to flour this one, but I feel like it's going to fall apart on me. So, like I said, this is an experiment together. Yay! So we'll see what happens. This is hot. I feel like this is not going to go the best. So let's see what happens. Okay. Wait. It came out! Yay! Pink! Yay! Yeah, I did it! Okay, next one. Ooh, yeah, this came out beautifully. Okay. Let's try this one more time, because this is the part that's hot. Okay, cool. I'll just show you a piece of what it looks like here. Okay, so, got you close. So that's what kind of it looks like on the inside. It looks pretty good. This is the crisp on the outside, so it's looking like the right color. It looks like it probably could have cooked a little bit longer. Let's try a piece. Not bad. I could have used a little more honey. Or if the banana had been riper, would have added the right amount of sugar content. And definitely, I think I could have used more.
Or maybe it's the salt. Womp, womp.
And I always taste baking soda, no matter what. I bet you no one else could taste it. I can. I think I would go with I think it was 2 teaspoons of baking soda. I probably end up doing 2 tablespoons of baking powder, and then doing the, I think it was a half teaspoon of baking powder as well, because I just always taste it. And it's not even that obvious. It's just, I'm like, that tastes a little metallic. But I think the consistency is pretty good. It just needs, I think, a little more sugar, and I would get rid of the baking soda. So, in terms of the recipe that was created, I would say keep the zucchini, keep the flowers. I think the flowers are good. We will keep the coconut oil. I think the amount of coconut oil is actually perfect. I would do a riper banana to add that extra sugar. So a whole full banana, or like I said, do a half a banana. Make sure it was half the banana was ripe, and do 2 eggs, so then it'll rise a little bit better. And then I would do a little more honey, or maybe even add a little more of vanilla extract. So I hope you like the zucchini bread, and maybe you can try some of the suggestions I just made. Maybe you'll try 1 or 2 of them. See, experiment, see what you like, and hit me up. Tell me what worked for you and what didn't work for you, okay? Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something today, and I hope you enjoyed what we did. Yeah, I'm not going to have another piece of cake.